Hello everyone, welcome to Redbust US channel. In this video, we'll look at the second lawsuit that was filed in the H1B perm wage levels issue. So we'll cover all the details in this video. If you haven't subscribed, do subscribe to our channel to get regular updates. So here is what we'll cover in this video, the background, what's the impact and the key argument points. So to start with, so this is the actual lawsuit details that was filed in District of Columbia, Washington DC, in the district court. As you can see, it's a pretty lengthy list of the people who've been part of this lawsuit, about 17 organizations, and in fact, a judge is also assigned as of yesterday. So the reason is, in simple terms, the wage levels have increased from the percentiles that you see on the left to on the right. So the level 1 wage now is 45th percentile. That's a big change, and all the other ones are upwards, right? We covered extensively regarding this in our previous video, so you can look at why the background and everything. But in short, this change impacts over 400,000 H1B positions just based on FY 2019 data from H1B grader, and also it impacts H1B extensions, perms, and a lot of other aspects. So that's why this lawsuit is filed to actually fight this change that is not logical. So that just check that out the video. We'll put a link in the description so you can look at the background. Now, in terms of basic details of the lawsuit, the primary, it's about 17 organizations, but the title says Purdue University versus Scalia as the Department of Labor Secretary. So here are the different organizations, right, that are part of this lawsuit. University of Michigan, Indiana University, Purdue University, many of these schools, Arizona. These are really, some of them are really, really good schools as well, and many of these non-profit and businesses as well. So they also filed like whatever you see on the screen, right? And it's a pro bono lawsuit that's filed by Ayla in collaboration with Charles Kirk and Greg Siskind firm. So they have, there's actually a nice thing. Some of these attorneys actually come forward to do this as a pro bono lawsuit. Now let's look at the impact, right? The impact, or they look at this as a harm clause, right, in general. So if you look at from university standpoint, they say that they can't really hire international faculty with the wage increases. This is a big problem because now they have to pay a lot more money for getting faculty because the wage levels are now higher. So what it does is it actually impacts the research from a university standpoint. And if they're not good faculty, not enough faculty, they can't keep up with enrollment. They can't provide quality learning. So for example, in University of Michigan, there are about 400 H1B positions that are sponsored per year, and currently they have about 750 H1B employees as well, right? So this is a big number if you look at it. And many of these job titles, in a particular location, do not have wage data available as per OES data. So in that context, the guidance that OES gives is use a default wage level of $100 or $208K per year. So this is for even entry level positions. So this is a big gap actually. So that's one of the concerns they have, because they'll have to rely on this number, which is actually significantly higher. There are a lot of other schools talk about similar ones, but again, I just give an example. But you can read the document, right? So the other some of the other harms that they talk about in the non-profit for the other organizations are, for example, Dentists of America. They say that international dentists, they work in many rural and underserved areas, right? And a singular wage of these 208K is not really will work, right? So same thing is other United Methodist Homes and Service. So they say that they operate several rehabilitation and senior care facilities, and this wage increase will not help them hire foreign nurses. Just for an example, they rely heavily on nurses from Philippines. With a 25% increase in the wage level does not help them, right? So this is applicable for perm actually. If you look at it, some of them, so that's the reason for this. Now that you know some of the background, right, let's look at the key argument points. So there are a bunch of them. We try to cover the major ones, right? So this is irregular rulemaking. So this is nothing new. Like in the previous lawsuit. So they did not follow proper rulemaking process. As per Administrative Procedure Act, which is actually one of the very, very big ones that is actually used by many of these litigations, is our Administrative Procedure Act. So they need to be compliant and follow proper process. That's a key idea. And the Department of Labor explanation for skipping notice and comment period is not justifiable. That's one of the key things they argue on. And second one is, if you recall, the OM, they submitted this, this thing to OM, the Office of Management and Budget, and then suddenly it was actually waived. It actually got, withdrawn. The status, reported that, and there is no explanation given for that, why they did that. So as per this Executive Order 12866, right, they're supposed to review anything that impacts economy of 100 million or more. So this one is a big one and it impacts much more than 100 million, and there was no explanation given. And in general, waiver is only applicable in case of exigency, safety, or other compelling clause, right? So, and senior, policy official. Sorry for the typo. So, any policy official should explain the reasons, related to the harm. So, in this kind of context for dual wage level changes, they did not really give an explanation. It was just, abruptly said waived. So that's one other point. So now again, they do talk about these illogical things, right? So DOL says that, because of COVID, there is a lot of unemployment, and it'll impact the wages of Americans if we don't raise the wage levels. So it's absolutely ridiculous, whatever they raised, because there is no data supporting that, and they use this as a good cause thing, which is not accepted. That's what is raised in the litigation, right, or the lawsuit. And incorrect wage level calculations. So there is a beautiful research article done by Cato Institute. So they talk about the nitty-gritties of this, but on a high level, they will use a flawed approach and doing calculations. So the fundamental thing is, if for level 4 wages, they use currently 95th percentile, or they call it a 10th decile. Decile is nothing but distribution of distribution of the entire wages, right? For example, 10th decile means the range between 90 to 100. That's called 10th decile, and they take an average of that for level 4. So the problem with this is the outliers, right? Usually the people who are highest paid in the are in this extreme range in the top decile. So for instance, this is just an example. Don't take this that this is real. But for example's sake, let's say there is an average wage of 70K for a position, and let's say some of them are extremely talented and they're paid high 500K. It's quite possible if you go to Bay Area, some of these positions, right? Some of them are really paid very, very high, much higher than the market. So imagine they are making 500K, and the average wage now, because if you have few of those outliers, right? So they are going to basically bring up the average wage of level 4 much higher. So this will be skewed and very, very misleading. So because of this, the level 4 wages will be impacted a lot, and they are not really reflecting the actual wages in that area because of these outliers. So it's a wrong approach, and because level 4 wages are used for level 2 and level 3, so they are also impacted. So that's the reason they say that this entire approach is fundamentally wrong and should not be used. The other point they talk about is a specialty occupation. This was in the previous lawsuit as well. So as per statute, specialty occupation only requires a bachelor's degree, but the DOL used a master degree as the benchmark for coming with a wage level 1 calculation. So that is not acceptable, or actually fundamentally flawed, right? That's what they say. And if you look at FLC data center, most of the wages, they have default wage of $100 or 208K per year, which is quite high. And based on the research done by one of the organizations, NAFP, they say that about 15,000 positions are missing, wage level data. So so technically what it means is all these 15,000 positions in various locations, right? They will have to fall back to this default $100 per hour, and they need to pay even 208K for even entry level position. So an example that they give in the lawsuit is, for example, if you're a new graduate attorney with no experience and just graduated in Washington DC metro area, so they picked Washington DC because the court is in there, right? So they have to pay for 208K. So this is what you would see on the screenshot, right, that we put on the screen. This is what you would see if you go to FLC data center and you see in n/a means nothing's available and there's no data, and you see the red text in there that tells the wage data may be at least 100,000. It's at least. So that's a bad part, right? So they take this argument, and this was not part of the law, part of the rule making, and they did not really give any of these details in there. So that's what they say. Now the second part is because there is no wage data, employers will be forced to do private service, and because they're missing wages for over 15,000 positions, there will be private service and different data. So there will be potential for audits. The reason is the wage data that comes from private service will be significantly different from what is in OES data because of current irregularities in the way they have done all of these calculations, right? So it's an extra burden for employees and I mean to say employers to actually work with this, right? So there's going to be a problem. The second one is the aspect of healthcare situation, right? So if you look at the foreign medical graduates on J1 visa, so they are actually serving all the rural and underserved areas under a program called Conrad 30 program, and many of them changed H1Bs after a couple of years or so, right? So the problem is now when they move to that H1B, so they have to be compliant for the wage, and with these high level wages in rural and underserved areas, they won't be able to even serve these communities, right? And again, all these medical professionals that are part of like nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, all of these are helping assisted living facilities, and these changes are not going to help any of them, and they won't be able to support public. So it's a big public health crisis that can happen if this is not fixed. So that's what they talk about. And the third one is extensions, right? If let's say somebody has to do extensions, they can't do it on time, and because of the wage increase of 40%, many of them cannot afford. So the hardships of H1B holders and also their families will be forced to leave the US. Everybody has to leave US. So this is a job loss part that they talk about. So overall, they outline all of these as some of the key things that are actually not done well by DOL, and they request court to actually stop US Department of Labor from implementing this, set aside this part, and also reissue the prevailing wage determinations that were done after this went into effect. And again, they also tell that give any reliefs or injunctions and orders of justice for whatever is necessary for the people impacted, right? So that's what they ask the court. And this is the exact statement they say: immediately enjoin the Department of Labor and implement these new calculations, right? So this is, I will put a link in the description for you to look at these things and all. But overall, if you look at the overall lawsuit, right, this handles a lot of different aspects that were not in the first lawsuit. The first lawsuit was very much geared towards businesses, but this one looks at a different dimension altogether. So they bring in this 15,000 positions with a 208K, which is actually a very, very big point that they raised. So that's a big one. Again, the public health thing and the healthcare medical related workers related issue is something very big that they brought in, and this was very, very compelling because of all the current situations. So it's going to be really difficult for DOL looking at the points raised here to justify and counter many of these arguments. So I think it's a very, very much the court is going to consider all of this. So so let's see what comes out of it. But that's about it, folks. Hope you liked it and you got a good idea of the lawsuit now. Do subscribe for getting regular updates. Thank you for watching.